Ultimate Collectibles here with review number 6 of the weekend, or 5. I'm mixing them up all together. And I wanted to do a review on this piece because while it's very rare and there's no other ones of this character that I know of, the upcoming potential movie with Jared Leto might bring a lot of interest, and I wanted to be one of the first ones to do this. I know there's a few other reviews of this piece out there that are very well done. So in a minute, let's talk about Morbius, the living vampire. Ultimate Collectibles here with a custom quarter scale Morbius, the living vampire statue. Very excited about this piece. I've had it for a while. It's a custom piece. I believe the ES was around 40. I believe it's long sold out as well. I was very excited to get it for the simple fact that I love Morbius. He's kind of an anti-hero, he's related to a few of the different popular comic book heroes, like Spider-Man is a big one. And he is a blood doctor who was in an accident and he became a living vampire. So he's not really a traditional vampire where he's dead. So he would go around and he would kill criminals once he got control of his thirst, and that's kind of how he's the anti-hero. He's a little bit different than normal vampires. He sucks the blood out through his hands, which is why he has these openings in his hands. Not as cool, but he still has that badass mouth that would scare anyone. I'm believing price on it was a pretty good deal. It was around $800. Shipping was not as bad as shipping's been the last few months, but shipping was a couple hundred from China. I think it's a great piece. I think when the movie comes out, if it does actually come out, this piece is going to skyrocket, but I do not plan on getting rid of it anytime soon. I believe it came in one box. It has the rocky base here without any of the plants on it. And then the gravestone was another piece that went right on top of it. Morbius himself was all one piece with the exception of his portraits. It actually comes with 4 different heads, and 2 of them I love. So I only have 2 of them out. The other 2 are in my warehouse. The 2 that I love include the one that I have here, which is kind of his full rage, pissed off face. And then you have another one where it's also very creepy. Hair flowing a little bit differently. I like to display this one sometimes. Then you have one that's more comic accurate, which I've never been a fan of, but this is also when he's in his vampire mode. And then the last is when he's in his human mode, right here. But I never display those 2, so those were stock photos. Not stock photos, but photos I took from Facebook. So concept and design, very cool. So first of all, I think they hit the entire story of Morbius. So he's obviously in a cemetery, an older cemetery, and there's overgrown weeds and ivy and things of that nature. And it's the gravestone of his wife, Martine. His name is Martin, I believe. I probably should know, but I haven't read the comics in years. Bancroft, where she had passed away, so he really has nothing else to live for, which is why he keeps doing what he's doing. There's an angel over his head, old angel statue. And then he is in a full-out dynamic challenge mode. He's saying, come and get me, I'm protecting my wife, I'm evil, I'm going to do whatever it does a living vampire does. So I really like the concept and design. I think it was pulled off very well. My one gripe with the statue regarding concept and design is I wish his leg stance wasn't so big, because the statue has to be huge. It commands a lot of real estate for the base, which is unfortunate, but definitely worth it. So I'm going to talk about sculpt and paint kind of together, go back and forth as we talk about each piece. Starting with the base, it's definitely an older cemetery. There's some moss coming out. There's some stones and different shades of the earth, from the coppers to the grays to the browns to the reds. I think they Did a good job with the sculpt of the base. I like how it looks old and dingy and kind of a mix between concrete and dirt, what you would find in a graveyard. Also, same thing with the ivy. The ivy growing up, I think it's sculpted really well. It's all over the place. It's going actually up the side of the gravestone all the way to almost the top of the statue. And also some Easter eggs they put in here is they put in the broken pieces of the angel's left hand on the bottom, and it's sculpted really well. They have some plants that are actually sculpted. They look like plastic, but they're not. I don't like them. I don't know. I think part of it is the paint job. They look too new, but they look like plastic. So I think we could have done without those. The paint job on the bottom, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the earth tones are good. I don't like the moss. It almost looks like spray paint on there. Very, very good statue, but I'd say this is one of the few downfalls it has. Moving up to the grave, great sculpt on the grave. I only wish that the lettering, they had done some more weathering or wear, both with the paint and the sculpt. But it's very clear what it is. The angel, there's tons of weathering. There's some cracks and breaks, and you can tell it's been here for a very long time, and I think the paint complements that very well. There's cracks all over the back of the angel wings, and the face of the statue is starting to crack as well. And then the hand, as we talked about, one's broken off, one has a few fingers missing. And they're able to mix in those shades of paint that's a little bit different from the stone below, so you can tell that the wear from the dirt and the ground hasn't reached all the way to the top, but it still has plenty of that weathering with almost off-whites and blacks and grays mixed in. And even the hair sculpt on the angel is very cool. The striations in it. Looks exactly like you think a large gravestone statue would. Then let's get to the star of the show, Morbius. So first of all, his lower half, the bottom of his body. So he has basically a suit on where his boots just mix into it. I don't know how comic accurate or not that is, but I like it. There's some stitching all along the right side, and you can still see some muscular proportions. However, he's not super muscular. I think one downfall a lot of statues have is they always make the character extremely muscular, no matter who he is, and that's not always the case. But there's good definition in Morbius in his legs and his thighs, and then I like how they show some sculpt in the suit of areas where he's bending at. There's folds, and it looks really good. It looks like fabric in its sculpt. And then it's one paint throughout, kind of not a dull, but not really a shiny black, and I think it's well suited for what it's supposed to be. Then he has his belt wrapped all the way around, kind of the top of his pants, and I like how this is not just pure red. It's got some black tones mixed in there. It looks kind of dull, but it still catches your eye. Moving up to his torso and the uniform around it, one thing I really like is I like how it's kind of ripped at the sleeves. This is obviously due to the transformation when he turns into Morbius, kind of similar to the way the Hulk does it, even though he doesn't change hugely in size. He probably does get a little bit more buff, a little bit bigger. And then his musculature in his arms, very strong, which if that's what he uses to kill his victims, that makes sense. Very tight torso, and again the same black paint they used for the pants, very similar up here. His arms really show his true color, both literally and figuratively, and they have that off-white color with the black fingernails, and then you still see some blue in the veination paint. So very good paint job. I like the paint job on Morbius and the statue, the grave, much more than I do the base. And then he has I don't know if they're wings or flaps or whatever they are, that share that same red color from the belt. And then on the back side, they're black, similar to his uniform. They're very smooth though, so they don't really feel like they match the uniform. So I can't remember the purpose of those. If they were part of the outfit, probably the back of the sculpt shouldn't be as smooth and should have some wrinkles in it, like the jacket and the pants do. I like his hands. They were very comic accurate, and they left those holes on the hands. It looks creepy. I don't even want to touch it. But I love the position of his hands, how he's ready to strangle somebody, the sculpt in them, very well done. and then the paint just adds to it. Then moving on to his portraits, so I'm just going to talk about this portrait because it's the one I have displayed. Fantastic sculpt, one of the best out there, and as well as the other one I like to display. But I like the mechanics of it. What I mean by that is when you pull him out right here, his whole neckline, so there's no seam, and each portrait is like that, so that was very smart. But going into his head, first of all, his hair is very well done, and then the black paint complements that. You can see almost individual strands and the different lengths of it. And they went kind of nuts in a good way with his hair on the different portraits. They're all in different directions, which I like. His ear, very, very detailed for a living vampire ear. Kind of looks like an elf ear. And then on his portrait right here, it is phenomenal. First of all, you see the folds in his skin where his wrinkle lines are. You can tell that he's really pissed. And then he kind of has this nose that I'm not a fan of, but it's comic accurate. It's almost like a pig nose, but it matches the comic exactly. And then I love how his gums and his teeth are just protruding, and his tongue. And he even has the hangy ball thing in his throat. I don't even know what that's called, but absolutely phenomenal sculpt, and it's the mouth is really complemented by the paint job. I love the shade of the teeth, a little bit off-white, the redness around the gums and the sides of the mouth where it protrudes up. He's opening his mouth very similarly to Nightmare Batman, which I reviewed recently, or the Reaper from Blade 2. The one miss on the face for the paint job, I think, is around the eyes. It doesn't look bad, it's just not as good quality. I think maybe they should have used a couple different colors of red in the eyes and then the black around the eyes. It just seems basic compared to the rest of it. It's not bad, it's just not as good as the rest. So that is a summary of Morbius, the living vampire statue. I absolutely love it, not only because I love the character, but I think the execution of the concept, the design, the sculpt, the paint was done very well. A few minor things that definitely you could look over very easily, but congratulations to anybody who got it, and I'm really excited to see if they do this movie. Till then, if you liked it, give me a like, subscribe, share. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.